Some of the most powerful, innovative, and unstoppable machines ever built didn't lose to better competition. They were swallowed by corporate mergers, killed by bad timing, and buried under dealership politics. The brands on this list once ruled millions of acres across North America. Farmers swore by them. Engineers feared them. And yet today, most people under 40 have never heard their names. These are the 10 forgotten tractor giants that should still be dominating fields. Number 1. Hart-Parr. Let's start with the most important name in all of tractor history. A name so few people know, it's almost criminal. Hart-Parr didn't just build tractors. Hart-Parr gave the world the word tractor. It was a Hart-Parr sales manager who first used the term tractor, a shorter, more marketable alternative to gasoline traction engine, because it rolled off the tongue far more easily. Before that simple word existed, the machines that would change farming forever were called by a clunky string of syllables nobody wanted to say twice. Charles Hart and Charles Parr originally formed their company in Madison, Wisconsin, but by the winter of 1901 and 1902, they had relocated to Charles City, Iowa, and produced their first gas traction engine. Within a few years, they were credited as the first company to successfully mass-produce gasoline-powered traction engines in America. By 1907, Hart-Parr had 6 major branch houses across the country and a factory in Charles City that kept growing year after year. Their machines were painted green with red wheels and white lettering, a bold, unmistakable look that turned heads at every county fair and field demonstration. Farmers across the Midwest came to trust that green paint as a symbol of brute, reliable power. But then came 1929, a year that changed everything for Hart-Parr. Hart-Parr merged with 4 other companies: Oliver Chilled Plow Works out of South Bend, Indiana, American Seeding Machine Company from Richmond, Indiana, Nichols and Shepard Company from Battle Creek, Michigan, and one more firm forming the Oliver Farm Equipment Sales Company. The Hart-Parr name didn't die overnight. For a few years, you could still find Hart-Parr stamped on machines alongside the Oliver name, with one name growing larger and the other shrinking, until 1938, when the Hart-Parr name disappeared entirely from tractor production. The company that invented the very word tractor, gone from the nameplate, absorbed into a corporate identity that would itself be absorbed again decades later. What makes this so bitter is that Hart-Parr's engineering legacy was genuinely extraordinary. Their Charles City factory, the same one Hart and Parr built in 1900, kept manufacturing tractors for nearly a century, producing Hart-Parr machines, then Oliver machines, then White machines, before finally closing for good in November 1993, more than 90 years after that first gas traction engine rolled out the door. The birthplace of the tractor industry shuttered at auction. Number 2. Oliver. After Hart-Parr was absorbed, Oliver became the surviving brand out of Charles City, Iowa, and for several decades, it was magnificent. Oliver's peak came with the Fleetline series, the models 66, 77, and 88, produced from 1948. During those years, the Charles City factory was producing approximately 20,000 tractors annually. Those are staggering numbers. The 88 in particular became one of the most respected row crop tractors of the post-war era. Known for its smooth power delivery, its sleek styling, and a reputation for outlasting machines from competitors twice its size, Oliver had another achievement that belongs in the history books. The Oliver 70, launched in 1935, was a watershed moment for the entire tractor industry. It introduced a high-compression, high-speed 6-cylinder engine to farm machinery at a time when most tractors ran on slow, lumbering engines. The Oliver 70 ran on gasoline instead of kerosene and delivered a refined, almost automotive quality to fieldwork. It changed what farmers expected from their machines. And Oliver's color contest, yes, a color contest, was one of the most unusual marketing events in agricultural history. In August 1937, Oliver's annual company picnic in Charles City featured a 2-mile parade of equipment and 6 specially painted Model 70 tractors, each a different color scheme chosen by a nationally known color specialist. Farmers voted on their favorite, chrome green with red trim and ivory lettering won. That combination became the iconic Oliver green that collectors still restore and show today. But in 1960, White Motor Corporation purchased Oliver as a wholly owned subsidiary. Then Cockshutt was added in Minneapolis-Moline in By 1969, White combined all three brands under a single White Farm Equipment banner. The three great names were stripped of their independence. Oliver tractors continued to be produced, wearing the green paint until February 13, 1976, when the last Oliver-branded tractor, an Oliver 2255, serial number 266782, rolled off the Charles City assembly line. One tractor, one serial number. End of an era. Oliver should still be in fields today. Its engineering philosophy, its devotion to high-speed, efficient engines, and its legendary reliability gave it everything it needed to compete into the modern age. Corporate consolidation took it anyway. Number 3. Minneapolis-Moline. Minneapolis-Moline is a brand that consistently did things first and consistently got no credit for it. The company itself was born from a merger of three firms in 1929, Minneapolis Steel and Machinery Company, known for its Twin City tractors, Minneapolis Threshing Machine Company, and the Moline Implement Company. Their headquarters were split between Minneapolis and Hopkins, Minnesota. Minneapolis-Moline painted their machines in prairie gold, a warm, unmistakable yellow, and that color became the signature of a company that was always pushing further than the market expected. Take propane fuel. Minneapolis-Moline did more than any other manufacturer to promote liquefied petroleum gas, propane, as a fuel source for farm tractors. Their experiments began in the early 1940s, possibly the late 1930s. The results were successful enough that the Minneapolis-Moline Model U standard became the first tractor ever tested at Nebraska's Tractor Test Laboratory using propane fuel. That test, number 411, was conducted in June 9. Minneapolis-Moline proved propane worked. The industry took note. Then there's the UDLX comfort tractor, introduced in 1938. At a time when farmers sat on open metal seats in all weather, Minneapolis-Moline offered a tractor with an enclosed cab, a heater, a radio, passenger seating, and safety glass windows. It looked more like a car than a farm machine. The market wasn't ready for it in 1938, and production was limited, but the concept was decades ahead of its time. The G-Series tractors represented Minneapolis-Moline's muscle years. The G135-5, introduced in 1972, was the most powerful Minneapolis-Moline tractor ever built, producing 142 PTO horsepower from a 6-cylinder diesel engine. It was a genuinely large, capable machine capable of serious field work. But by 1963, White Motor Company had acquired Minneapolis-Moline. The brand held on for a while, with White eventually selling Minneapolis-Moline badged versions of Oliver models as the Prairie Gold machines became harder to tell apart from their green-painted cousins. The G955, manufactured between 1973 and 1974, was the last tractor built under the Minneapolis-Moline name. White dropped the brand entirely in 1974, 6 years before White itself collapsed. A company that put radios and heaters in tractors in 1938 and proved propane power worked in 1949 deserved better than a quiet discontinuation in the mid-90s. Number 4. Allis-Chalmers. If you know one thing about Allis-Chalmers, it's the color, Persian orange. That distinctive, aggressive shade came directly from a California poppy field. In 1929, senior Allis-Chalmers executive Harry Merritt was in California when the bright orange blooms of California poppies caught his attention. He decided that farm equipment needed to be seen, that bright colors were a marketing tool, and he changed the paint on Allis-Chalmers tractors to Persian orange, the closest available shade to that California wildflower. International Harvester switched to all red in 1936. Minneapolis-Moline went prairie gold. The orange started a revolution in agricultural branding. But Allis-Chalmers contributed far more than a color scheme. The Model U, first produced in 1929, holds a distinction that almost nobody talks about. It was the first farm tractor equipped by the manufacturer with low-pressure rubber tires. Before the Model U, farm tractors ran on steel wheels. Low-pressure pneumatic rubber tires changed everything. Field speed, soil compaction, ride quality, fuel efficiency. Allis-Chalmers put them on as standard equipment before anyone else. The WD-45, introduced in 1953, sold over 90,000 units between 1953 and 1957, including 83,500 gasoline-powered models and 6,500 diesel-powered ones. It was the first Allis-Chalmers tractor to offer a diesel engine and power steering. For comparison, the roughly comparable John Deere Model 60 sold around 61,000 tractors during a similar period. Allis-Chalmers was winning. The D19, introduced in 1961, made history again. It was the first farm tractor to come from the factory with a turbocharger installed as standard equipment, not as an option. Standard. That turbocharged diesel was producing 64 horsepower by the end of its production run in The D21 then became the first Allis-Chalmers model to break 100 horsepower, 103 on the PTO, 93 on the drawbar, enough power to pull a 7-bottom plow across level ground. In the early 1950s, Allis-Chalmers had over 30,000 employees and generated more annual revenue than IBM. Let that settle for a moment. More revenue than IBM. But the 1980s were brutal. The farm economy collapsed. Divisions were sold off or shut down. On the final day, December 6, 1985, the last Allis-Chalmers tractor, an AC Model 6070 with serial number 1972, rolled off the assembly line at the West Allis Works in Wisconsin at 10:26 in the morning. The agricultural division had been sold to Klockner Humboldt Deutz of West Germany in May of that year. Deutz renamed it Deutz Allis. Then management bought it out in 1989 to form AGSU. The orange is gone. The name on the door is gone. A tractor company that invented rubber-tired tractors, factory turbocharged engines, and once out-earned IBM, should still be building machines today. Number 5. Steiger. The Steiger story is one of the most remarkable origin stories in the history of American manufacturing. In the winter of 1957 and 1958, John Steiger and his two sons, Maurice and Douglas, were farming near Red Lake Falls, Minnesota. They needed a larger, more powerful tractor than anything available commercially for sale, so they built one themselves in their barn, converted to a workshop using salvaged parts and a Detroit 671 diesel engine. That first Steiger tractor weighed 15,000 pounds and accumulated 10,000 hours of field time in just 10 years. It is currently on display at a museum in West Fargo, North Dakota. What happened next is the part that sounds like fiction. Their neighbors saw the machine and wanted one. Other farmers wanted one. Word spread. By 1963, the Steiger family became serious about manufacturing, designing tractors for commercial sale and building them at their farm with a crew of 20 employees. Approximately 125 tractors were built right there at the Steiger farm before demand finally outgrew the barn. In 1969, the tractor operation moved to Fargo, North Dakota, with 26 employees. By 1974, the company had grown so dramatically that a brand new 420,000 square foot manufacturing plant was constructed, and it was built in less than a year. At full capacity, that factory could produce a new Steiger tractor every 18 minutes. In the 1970s, more than 100 people worked at that Fargo facility. Steiger was building four-wheel drive articulated tractors at a time when John Deere and International Harvester was still figuring out the segment. Steiger produced tractors not just for their own brand, but under contract for Allis-Chalmers, Ford, International Harvester, and Canadian Co-op Implements. During the 1970s, annual sales went from $2 million to more than $104 million. By 1979, they had built their 10,000th tractor. The Steiger tractor line used animal names for its models: Wildcat, Cougar, Bearcat, Panther, Tiger, and those names fit machines that were genuinely fierce. These were serious high-horsepower 4WD machines built for wide-open farming operations. But the farm economy of the 1980s hit Steiger hard. With the plant operating at just 25% capacity, Steiger filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in Tenneco Inc., which owned Case at the time, purchased the company. The lime green Steiger color was retired. Red came in. The Steiger name was eventually absorbed into the Case IH lineup, where the 4WD articulated line still carries the Steiger name today, but as a product designation, not an independent brand. A company that went from a family barn in Minnesota to a 420,000 square foot factory in North Dakota deserved to survive as its own brand. The machines they built changed large-scale farming permanently. Number 6. Cockshutt. Cockshutt Farm Equipment is one of the most underappreciated tractor brands in North American history. primarily because it was Canadian based in Brantford, Ontario, and the American market paid it far less attention than it deserved. Cockshutt's origins go back to 1877, when James G. Cockshutt began manufacturing farm implements in Brantford. By the time tractors became the dominant force in agriculture, Cockshutt was already a well-established name across Canada and into American markets. What made Cockshutt remarkable in the post-war era was design quality. After World War II, Cockshutt hired famed industrial designer Raymond Loewy's firm to style their tractor line. Raymond Loewy was the same designer responsible for the Coca-Cola bottle contour, the Lucky Strike cigarette pack redesign, and the exterior of the 1947 Studebaker, one of the most celebrated industrial designers in American history. Cockshutt's tractors were genuinely attractive machines, and that visual distinction helped them stand out in a crowded market. Cockshutt also developed a significant reputation for independent live PTO, a system that allowed the power takeoff shaft to continue operating independently of the tractor's forward motion. This gave Cockshutt operators more control and versatility with their equipment, and it became a selling point that farmers in both Canada and the United States took seriously. In 1962, White Motor Corporation added Cockshutt as a subsidiary, alongside Oliver. By 1969, when White combined Oliver, Cockshutt, and Minneapolis-Moline under the White Farm Equipment umbrella, the distinct Cockshutt identity began fading. Cockshutt-branded tractors were eventually phased out, with many later models simply being rebranded versions of Oliver or Minneapolis-Moline machines. The Cockshutt name was gone. Canada's most significant domestic tractor brand, styled by one of the greatest industrial designers of the 20th century, erased from production by corporate consolidation. Number 7. Waterloo Boy. This one requires a bit of context, because Waterloo Boy sits at the absolute foundation of the most successful tractor brand in history, and almost nobody knows it. The Waterloo Gasoline Traction Engine Company was started in 1893 in Waterloo, Iowa, to build a tractor designed by John Froelich. The early years were difficult, and the company pivoted to manufacturing stationary gas engines, which sold well. Eventually, in 1911, the company did build a tractor again, a 9,000-pound, 25-horsepower machine. Their tractor line became known as the Waterloo Boy. By the time World War I was driving demand for mechanized farm equipment across Europe and America, the Waterloo Boy was a well-regarded machine. The British market was particularly strong. A company called the Overtime Farm Tractor Company imported the Waterloo Boy to England, rebranding it as the Overtime Tractor. The British demand was so intense that at times the British market was taking almost the entire output of the Waterloo factory. The Waterloo Boy Model N produced 25 horsepower from a 2-cylinder engine and ran on kerosene, a cheaper, more available fuel than gasoline for rural farmers. It had 2 forward gears and 1 reverse gear. In March 1918, Deere & Company purchased the Waterloo Gas Engine Company. They continued producing Waterloo Boy tractors until 1923, when the first John Deere Model D replaced them. The Waterloo Boy was the direct predecessor to every John Deere tractor ever built. Without Waterloo Boy, there may never have been a John Deere agricultural empire. The brand was retired once John Deere's own identity was established. But Waterloo Boy deserves to be remembered not as a footnote, but as the foundation stone on which the world's largest tractor manufacturer was built. Number 8. Twin City. Before there was Minneapolis-Moline, there was Twin City. The Twin City brand was produced by Minneapolis Steel and Machinery Company, one of the 3 firms that merged in 1929 to create Minneapolis-Moline. Twin City tractors were serious machines, large, heavy, and built for the demanding grain farming operations of the northern Great Plains. What made Twin City stand out was an early commitment to big power. At a time in the 1910s and early 1920s when most tractor manufacturers were focused on small, lightweight machines for row crop work, Twin City was building high-horsepower engines designed for serious belt work running threshing machines, grain elevators, and sawmills, as well as pulling tillage implements. The Twin City 1630, the 2132, and eventually their later models pushed horsepower ratings that most of their contemporaries weren't even attempting. Their engines were well-built and durable, earning Twin City machines a reputation across the wheat belts of Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, When the three-way merger created Minneapolis-Moline in 1929, the Twin City name was gradually phased out. The engineering knowledge and manufacturing capability from the Twin City side of the merger contributed significantly to the Minneapolis-Moline machines that followed, but the brand itself was absorbed and forgotten. The Twin City name represented an era of industrial boldness, big machines for big fields, that the industry would not fully revisit until the 4WD articulated tractor era of the late 1960s. Number 9. Massey-Harris. Before Massey-Ferguson was Massey-Ferguson, there was Massey-Harris, and Massey-Harris was genuinely one of the most important farm equipment companies ever to operate in North America. Massey-Harris was itself the product of an 1891 merger between two Canadian implement manufacturers, the Massey Manufacturing Company of Toronto and A. Harris, Son & Company of Brantford, Ontario. The combined company became one of the largest agricultural implement manufacturers in the world. Massey-Harris tractors earned a strong following in the 1940s and 1950s. The Massey-Harris 44, introduced in 1946, became one of the most popular tractors of its era. A versatile, well-powered machine with a smooth Continental or Massey-built engine that farmers across North America trusted completely. The 44 diesel and the 44 LP gas versions expanded the lineup's versatility. Massey-Harris was also among the early adopters of self-propelled combines, a development that changed harvesting permanently. Their Clipper combine and the subsequent models helped move agriculture away from the pulled, ground-driven threshing equipment of earlier decades. In 1953, Massey-Harris merged with the Harry Ferguson Company, the inventor of the three-point hitch, to form Massey-Harris Ferguson. The Massey-Harris name was eventually dropped entirely in 1958, when the company became simply Massey-Ferguson. A century of Canadian agricultural heritage gone from the letterhead, Massey-Harris represented a uniquely North American success story that deserved to keep its name into the modern era rather than being folded into the merged identity that followed. Number 10. Minneapolis-Moline UDLX Tom 4 tractor. We close with the single most remarkable tractor ever built, a machine so far ahead of its time that the world simply wasn't ready for it. In 1938, Minneapolis-Moline introduced the UDLX comfort tractor. While every other tractor manufacturer on Earth was building open-seat machines where operators sat exposed to rain, wind, dust, heat, and cold, Minneapolis-Moline built something that looked like a luxury automobile stretched over a tractor chassis. The UDLX had an enclosed cab with safety glass windows. It had a heater, it had a radio, it had a passenger seat, allowing a farmer's wife or a farmhand to ride along without clinging to a fender. It had automotive-style controls and interior comfort that no farm machine had ever attempted. On the highway, and it could travel the highway, the UDLX could reach speeds around 40 miles per hour. The price tag was steep for 1938, and the agricultural economy was still recovering from the Great Depression. Most farmers couldn't justify the cost of comfort. Production was limited. The UDLX became one of the rarest and most sought-after collector pieces in tractor history today. But here's the point: the enclosed cab tractor, the exact concept Minneapolis-Moline built in 1938, is now universal. Every modern tractor has an enclosed cab with heat, air conditioning, GPS systems, and creature comforts. What Minneapolis-Moline engineered in 1938 is standard equipment in 2026. They were right, the world just wasn't ready. The UDLX didn't fail because the concept was bad. It failed because it arrived 30 years before the market caught up. So that's it for today. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos. Thanks for watching.